Our next case is Mr. Ruben Anderson. Mr. Anderson, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
Ruben Anderson, 214-230.
Mr. Anderson, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record. Once I do that, we'll conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who wish to have input to speak. Present here today, Mr. Daniel Damaris is here today and wishes to speak. Ms. Mary Lou Newton is here in person but does not wish to speak. At the end, you'll have an opportunity to make a statement to the court, to the board, and then the board will vote. Do you understand our process?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of Ruben J. Anderson, DOC number 214230, date of birth February the 17th of 1959. He's a first-time felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of September the 8th of 2023, an adjusted good time date of April the 11th of 2029, and a full term date of September the 8th of 2033. He is currently serving a 30-year sentence on the charge of manslaughter, having been sentenced on July the 12th of 2004. Mr. Anderson, is that information accurate?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Anderson, your case has been assigned to me, so I will begin our interview process. Mr. Anderson, how old are you today, sir?
64 years old.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
A little over 20 years.
So you were 44, 43, 44 years old at the time this occurred?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about Ruben Anderson at 43, 44 years old. Were you working?
Yes, sir.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was in a construction business. I was superintendent for Caribbean Construction Company.
How much education had you had?
I graduated from high school and I had 2 years of college.
Were alcohol or drugs involved at all in your life at that time?
We were drinking the night this occurred, but I never did drugs, ever.
Okay, well, talk to me a little bit about your drinking. How often would you drink?
I guess every day, 2 or 3 beers after work.
Okay. You consider yourself to be an alcoholic?
No.
Now, after having been in prison and taking a few courses and having time to reflect, do you consider yourself back then to have been an alcoholic?
No.
So tell me what happened on September the 6th of 2023. First off, what was your relationship back then? Tell me what was going on with you.
I was at Jay's house to watch a football game.
Let me slow you down a little bit. Tell me what your relationship was with Mr. Jay Damaris.
We were friends.
Okay.
And I was at his house for a football game, but I was at his house every day working on his house after work. After work, when I got off, I went to his house and I was doing work on his house.
You were not living there?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I would work on his house till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And then sometimes I would stay there and because it was so far for me to go home.
Okay, so what happened?
We were watching the game.
Who is we?
Jay and I and a young lady named Rachel, I believe.
Okay.
And Rachel.
Who was Rachel to either of you?
Rachel was someone I was trying to help stay off the streets.
Meaning what?
Meaning she was a longtime prostitute and drug offender.
How were you
trying to help her stay
off
clean?
The streets? What were you doing to help her stay off the streets?
Keeping her with me wherever I went when I was off work.
So did she live with you?
No.
Did she live did she live at Mr. Damaris' home?
She stayed there quite often. She was friends with Mr. Damaris's wife.
All right. Then go ahead, continue. What happened?
After the game, when I went to leave, I got in an altercation with a drug dealer that she had called.
Okay, let me slow you down. You said y'all were drinking. What were y'all drinking?
We were drinking beer.
How much beer?
I probably had 3 beers, 3, maybe 4.
Anybody else drinking?
Everybody was drinking.
Yeah.
But,
Who all was inside? Where did you get in this argument or this altercation with a drug dealer?
outside the house.
And how did that occur?
When I went to leave, he accosted me. He obviously thought I was Jay.
Why were you leaving?
Game was over. I had to go to work in one. I was going home.
You and Mr. Damaris did not get in an argument and he didn't kick you out of the house and say, give me keys, don't ever come back?
This is what they tried to say at the trial, but that never happened.
Okay, let's slow down a little bit. You had a trial?
Yes, sir.
Those were the facts that were presented to the jury?
That's what
Those
Rachel
were the
testified
facts
to.
that were presented to the jury?
I would imagine so, yes.
Well, you were there, weren't you?
Yes.
And
But I
the jury,
never had an altercation with Jay.
and the jury came back guilty of manslaughter?
The second trial, yes.
Okay. Same facts were brought out?
I believe so, yes.
Well, you were there, weren't you?
Yes,
How many murder trials have you had?
we had 2 trials.
Well, I understand, but I would assume you would remember, even though it was a long time ago, what was said at your trials.
They brought up a lot of things that just weren't true. They brought up the fact that they tried to say it was a fact that I was living with Jay, and I wasn't living there at Jay's house.
So how was it that you ended up shooting and killing Mr. Demarest? If you're involved with this drug dealer, how did you shoot Mr. Demarest?
I never shot Mr. Demarest.
Okay.
I'm convicted of shooting, but I never shot Mr. Demarest.
So
I
what
never
happened?
had a gun.
So what happened?
Mr. Demarest got in an altercation with this drug dealer over money that he owed him. And I ran. That's all I know. I heard the shot go off after I was in my truck.
And I assume, Mr. Anderson, that you told this same story that you're telling us today to 2 different juries. Is that right?
No, the first jury, the first trial I had, this is what I told them. The
Okay.
second trial, my lawyer advised me to just stay off the witness stand because they didn't have enough evidence to convict me.
He was wrong.
Excuse me?
He was wrong.
Well, obviously he was wrong. I didn't get to get on the stand in the second trial.
So your position is you didn't do this. You're an innocent man in prison.
Yes, sir.
So tell me what you've done while you've been in prison.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear
Tell me
that.
what things have you accomplished while you've been in prison?
I took 2 years VOTEC and completed that. I took anger management and living in balance.
Okay. And what did you get out of those programs?
I didn't get any good time.
I'm not talking about what kind of credit you got. What did you learn, or what did you understand, or what did you comprehend about yourself by taking these classes? You took an anger management class. Did you have
Yes.
anger issues?
Well, I took it because I was convicted of manslaughter, and I thought that it would look good on my parole.
Ah, so what you've done while you've been in prison is taken whatever it is you thought might help you get out of prison.
I took whatever classes that were available to me.
Okay, well, did you learn anything? Was anything of any value to you that you took? Or were you just sitting in there hoping to pad your resume for the time that you came before this board?
Everything that I've learned makes me who I am now. I don't understand how to answer that question.
Well,
I've
it's a
been
very
modeled-
simple question. Okay, you're probably going to go back to your cell and you're going to say the guy who was questioning me was fairly aggressive with me. I don't think he believed me. That's what you get out of the discussion you and I are having today. What did you get out of the classes that you went to? Someone talked to you about anger. They talked to you about your emotions. They talked to you about your feelings. Did any of that resonate with you that, hey, that might be me?
Yes, sir.
I learned something from this.
Well, I learned to avoid confrontation. I learned to step back and take a deep breath.
What did you learn in living in balance?
It's basically the way I lived. I don't know how to answer that question.
There's nothing you can do about what I'm about to say, but you certainly have opposition to your release.
Yes, sir.
Law enforcement opposition, victim family opposition. You did have a DWI back in the day, I guess. So drinking, you still don't think drinking is an issue with you?
I've never had a DWI ever.
You didn't have a DWI? I thought I saw a DWI on your record. Maybe I'm
No.
wrong.
No, sir.
Let me look. Let me look. You might be correct.
It was operation with motorboat.
It was a reckless operation. Well, no, you had a, yeah, all right.
We had a hit and run, but that was concerned.
Warden, what can you, Mr. Who is there with you there?
Excuse me?
Is there a staff member there with you today?
Yes, sir, Sergeant Marsh. However, he's housed next door at DC2. And for logistic reasons, he's here at DC3 for the hearing. So I can't tell you anything about him. I've never met the man.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we appreciate you coming. All right. That's all I've got. Any questions?
I have one question.
Okay.
I have, good morning, sir. There was a arrest for fishing contest fraud. Do you remember what that was? What you did then?
Yes, ma'am. I was arrested for fraud for a fishing contest, the Grand Isle Rodeo. I won the rodeo, and I beat out the second place person was a judge in Lafourche Parish, and he complained about it. I was arrested for it. I went to trial for it, and I was found not guilty.
Oh, okay. Well, what were the allegations? You remember?
The allegations was that I didn't catch the fish legally.
Oh, okay. All righty. All right, that's all I had. Thank you for answering my question.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from Mr. Daniel Demarest.
Good morning.
I have a statement that I've written, that I'd just like to read to the board. Okay.
Yes, sir.
The scene of this horrific crime was our grandparents' home, where we used to go every holiday with my aunts, uncles, and all of our cousins. It was the place where we had wonderful memories of growing up. All those wonderful memories were wiped away on September the 6th, 2003, when Mr. Ruben Anderson shot my brother, Francis J. Demarest, in cold blood. Not the last memory I have of my grandparents' home is the stain of the pool of blood that my brother was lying in the next day. I was reminded of this of the crime scene in court as I saw for the first time the 4x4 white poster board with a picture of my brother lying on the ground with a white t-shirt with a hole in his chest and a pool of blood that he was lying in. What a difference to childhood memories we had. This home was at one time a political think tank for many prominent political officials from the city of New Orleans and sometimes served as their campaign headquarters. My mother and father taught and showed us growing up that kindness should be practiced in our daily lives. There were instances when our parents would see a child in need and reach out to them to help them. When I was in the 5th grade, playing ball at a local playground, my mom discovered that there was one of my teammates that did not have clean clothes, but did not have enough money to buy cleats to play. My mom and dad went and spoke to his parents, and they asked if they could help. The next thing we knew, he was living with us and going to Catholic school with us. My parents paid tuition, bought uniforms, shoes, jackets, and all the necessary things that he needed to go to school and play ball. There were many other examples of acts of kindness displayed throughout our childhood. Several acts of kindness my brother showed eventually got him murdered. He and his wife, Patricia Demarest, were separated and were living apart. Patty called Jay and explained that she had lost her job, and my brother's response was, "If you come live with me until you get a job and get back on your feet." He also allowed his killer, Ruben Anderson, and his girlfriend to live there with them when they were down on their luck. Ruben Anderson moved in, though he knew his girlfriend had open warrants for her arrest in Jefferson Parish. He was also harboring a fugitive, unbeknownst to my brother. After Jay's death, his estranged wife collected his insurance benefits and his pension up until her death just a few years ago. From the testimony of his girlfriend, the couple broke up the day of the murder, and then a fight ensued between Ruben and his girlfriend. My brother was not going to allow a man to put his hands on a woman. Then a fight broke out between Ruben and Jay. After Jay whipped his ass, he asked him to leave the house and give him his keys. He left and came back later, and Jay told him to get out and ordered him off the property. They both went outside, and Jay could be heard saying, "So what are you going to do with that gun? Kill me, you mother effer?" Then Ruben Anderson shot him at point blank range with a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun. Not a gun used for hunting, but for killing. We were told by the coroner and one of the police officers that Jay could not have survived that gunshot wound. After Ruben shot him, he ran and drove off, not even trying to help Jay, which showed his true character. That to me shows no remorse, and that is characteristic of a cold-hearted killer. After this report aired on all of the news starting that night, September 6, 2003, Ruben's girlfriend turned herself in, and Ruben turned himself in the same next day. A brief history of our family: my father was an attorney and a reporter of mortgages for Orleans Parish, and his father was that before him. My mother worked for the Department of Finance of the USDA, and as did my younger sister, Mary Lou. Jay worked for the Administrative Office of the Louisiana State Supreme Court. As you can see from the above, our family was all about servicing people and being outstanding members of the community. My father had parole power, and I can remember my father getting calls in the middle of the night on holidays and vacations to help someone get out, get parole. And he did it and never complained. In the appellate process, the defendant accused the court of partiality that the defense attorney knew my father, also an attorney, and rightfully so, because he knew almost all the attorneys who practiced in Orleans Parish, since he and my grandfather had held public office for over 50 years in Orleans Parish, where they worked with them every day. A tragic and horrific crime such as murder causes collateral damages with families, victims, members, and friends. At the time of the trial, no one knows the extent of that damage may be and never is considered. That could be multiple victims that this affects. The person who was affected most in our family was our mother. I'm sorry. My mother was born to a woman who did not want her at birth, so she never knew her mother. She was raised by her father and her grandmother. She had a hard life growing up and always wondered why her mother abandoned her. My grandfather and grandmother raised her the best they could, putting her through Catholic grammar school and high school. She graduated high school with honors and went on to work for the military at Camp Leroy Johnson in New Orleans. She met my father, Francis J. Demers Jr., fell in love and they got married. My mom gave birth to our older sister, Susan, and upon birth, my mom and dad were notified that she was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. And my parents were told that this was terminal and that she could live to be 1 or 4. Unfortunately, Susan lived until she was 7 years old and died 1 week after her first Holy Communion. My parents were devastated. They never got over it until they had another child, my brother, Francis J. Demers Jr. My parents cherished Jay because they believed that he was sent to them by God to make Susan's death easier to deal with. Jay went to St. Aloysius High School for 3 years and then finished at Brother Martin High School and was elected the first student council president. He graduated with honors and then attended the University of Notre Dame for 2 years and maintained a 3.5 GPA while he was there. He was feeling homesick, and after 2 years away from his family and friends, he returned home and graduated from Loyola University and received his bachelor's. He went on to work for my father as the chief clerk of the mortgage office. And then when my father retired, he went on to work for the administrative office of the Louisiana State Supreme Court, where he was employed until his death. Early on, I spoke about collateral damage of families at the time of crime like this is committed. Can you imagine the trauma and grief a mother goes through when she never knew her mother, and then both her oldest children are taken from her, one through natural causes and the other child taken from her by a heartless, stone-cold killer. There are no words to say what my mother was feeling. And her reaction was when my sister and I delivered the news about Jay the next morning. She was distraught, angry, showing all the emotions you would expect of a grieving mother would share. This was compounded by all the bottled up emotions that were still there from Susan's death. So it's like she was grieving the loss of 2 of her children. This I thought was too much for her to handle, but faith got her through it. After Jay's funeral, the real tragedy began. My mother, who was strong German heritage, she had this tough exterior, but was the most sweet and gentle person on the inside and loved her kids more than life itself. We saw that Jay's death broke my mother's will and spirit to live. She started not eating and drinking, and she was grieving Jay's death. You could see that she was starving herself and refraining from drinking. After a little over 21 months, my mom was admitted to the hospital. Not because of a medical condition or illness, her organs began shutting down and she gave into life and passed away from a broken heart. The hardest thing in my life was watching my father tell my mother goodbye after they had been married for over 50 years. We were told that my dad would not be far behind because he would also grieve the loss of my mother. And it was just 9 months later and my dad was gone. In this case, the act of violence by Ruben Anderson caused 3 deaths in our family by his cowardice act of pulling the trigger and now how does he even have the audacity to ask to be paroled? He made a conscious decision to leave the scene of the crime to get a sawed-off shotgun, came back with the intent and sole purpose of murdering my brother. My brother never got to see his godchild graduate from high school, college, get married, his 3 great nephews born, grow at his mother and father's funeral. Victims' families versus convicts' families. Convict has possibility of visitation with his families if they so choose, possibility of parole, speaking of family through phone calls, letters, being set free.
Mr. Demarest, we've read your letters. If you would just wrap it up, tell us if there's anything else you'd like to say. We do have your letter and we have read.
I'd just like to say that this is affecting our family deal. And this is something that will never be. It's something that carries you great. And I can just say this, that it has been, since the day this happened, it's been 7,353 days. And the last memory I have of my brother was Labor Day weekend, and we left. When he kissed me on my cheek and his beer running against me. And I feel like everything wrong.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Anderson, is there anything you'd like to say before the panel votes?
No, sir.
Panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson, you know, I've reviewed your file and, you know, I must say, I'm very disappointed in what I've heard today. I don't think you've been very honest with us about what actually happened. On one hand, on the other hand, I think you've been pretty honest about why you took these courses and what you hoped to do in taking these courses. I just think you've got more work to do. You know, I'll accept the fact that if you want to continue to claim that you're innocent, that's fine. But I would have thought and hoped that you would learn something while you've been in prison. The damage that was done to the victim's family, all of those things, some sort of contrition, some sort of understanding, but I haven't seen it. I didn't see it at all. You have law enforcement opposition. You certainly have obvious victim opposition. I think you need to do some more work internally. So my vote today would be to deny your request for parole. Mr. Rucci.
Mr. Chairman, my vote is the same for the same reasons.
Ms. Anderson, despite 2 trials, well, first of all, I want to speak to the victim's family. We really appreciate your participation in the process. I know how hard this was, but you know, the law is the law. He has rights just like you guys have rights, and I appreciate y'all coming today. And we did get to read the letter, and I put in my notes. It's one of the best letters I've had, and it's almost 8 years I've served. Very poignant, very poignant. But Mr. Anderson, I'm just really shocked that you lack no insight or awareness of the crime and its impact. You just presented none of that. No remorse, no insight or awareness of the crime. And the reasons I've already been stated on the record, my vote is denied.
Mr. Anderson, you have 3 votes to deny your parole. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.